Welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
And I'm Matt.
And if you're new to the show, here we are playing one game for every character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And today's game is our first journey off of the NES. It's the game chosen to represent Fighter Number 13 Epsilon, Princess Daisy. It is the 1989 Game Boy game, Super Mario Land.
For our first portable system.
Sure is, and it feels really good to say that the NES is gone. The evil is defeated.
Because you're racist.
I hate the NES so much. So, this is our first Game Boy game, and boy, was it also one of the first Game Boy games, and it sure does feel like that.
In America, it came out one day after the Game Boy.
Oh man, missed that window just barely. Wouldn't that still technically be considered a lot? No, I guess not. It has to come out the day of, doesn't it? Wow.
And so the Game Boy, of course, was Nintendo's first major handheld release, and in fact was one of the first major handheld consoles ever. It's not the first handheld video game thing, but it was a game changer in the way that it was the first, I believe it was the first dedicated system with multiple games like this.
I believe so, because before this you had what? The Game & Watch?
You had when was the N-Gage? That was much later. That was much later.
That was far later. That was a lot later, and also I forgot the N-Gage existed.
Well, I'm happy to remind you.
Wow, that's a pull. That was a pull. But no, I personally think that the Game Boy might be one of Nintendo's most revolutionary creations just ever. And it was, I think, the big start to Nintendo being the innovators, which for a while they fell off of, or sometimes they move a little too far in the direction of being an innovator.
Well, they do their best.
To the point where the Wii U happens. But they've always kind of tried to be innovators, and I think the Game Boy was the start of that.
Yeah, well, it's tough to say where the real start was, because any video game was an innovation back in those times.
Yeah, but this was a video game that you could take with you in your car or to school. Don't take video games to school, kids. Or out to the park, and you could play it, and it wasn't just a single game. You could take the cartridge out and you could swap it back, and something like this hadn't really happened before. Yeah,
and they made sure to develop a game that was really geared around that idea as well. Super Mario Land, obviously, a launch title for the first handheld, was the first handheld Mario game. And they deliberately decided to make a game for a handheld with Mario because the Nintendo CEO at the time, Hiroshi Yamauchi, believed that fun games sold consoles, and Mario was the most fun thing that they've got. So it was the studio that made Mario Land was Nintendo R&D 1. The idea of how Nintendo handled their development teams at the time was that they had multiple competing development teams that went by extremely similar names, and they would compete with each other for which games would get greenlit. And that's how they fostered the best game development internally, was essentially by taking the idea of competition that keeps the free market working and making it internal. And Nintendo R&D 1 was also the studio that made Metroid, Kid Icarus, Ice Climber, as well as the original Mario Bros. And Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light. So they've got a resume of quite a few of the older games. They were not the ones that did the original Super Mario Brothers, though.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was the case. The original Mario Brothers isn't very good, so they have literally one still considered okay game on that entire list, but like those were good games at the time. That was a hell of a resume back then.
Mm-hmm.
Which I said this last episode when you mentioned this same little piece of trivia, but like that's a weird spread, but it's also a hell of a spread for the time.
Meanwhile, their competing studio developed NES Open Tournament Golf.
Oh man.
Ice Hockey.
I've heard that's not bad.
Mock Rider. And then Nintendo R&D 3 doesn't even have their own Wikipedia page.
Rest in peace. Wow.
Oh, my mistake. They do have their own Wikipedia page, but they are now known as Nintendo Integrated Research and Development, and they made Punch-Out, as well as the Nintendo 64.
Nintendo still uses this method to this day for Mario games, I believe. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the whole thing behind Galaxy was they had two studios pitch a Mario game, and the one that pitched Galaxy won out and got their game made fully, and that became Super Mario Galaxy.
And so another thing about this game's development is that it is the first Mario game that was made without Shigeru Miyamoto. This was actually led by Gunpei Yokoi. This was the first time a Mario game without Miyamoto existed, so there's a really important look at like what Mario is when someone else takes over it. So it had Gunpei Yokoi as the producer, Satoru Okada as the director, and they were kind of like the tag team. Like I said, R&D 1 previously did Metroid and Kid Icarus, and Yokoi and Okada worked together on those games as well. So this is more or less the same creative people that did that game. And you can see how, like, aesthetically and in terms of, like, general vision, it differs from the other Mario games that we had so far.
Boy, does it!
Yeah, it has a completely different feel.
This game is weird.
Yeah, and not just in terms of the limitations of the Game Boy, which those are obvious enough in themselves, but it's just, this doesn't feel like a Mario game in a lot of aesthetic ways, which I think is why it doesn't take place in the Mushroom Kingdom. It takes place in Sarasaland.
And like you said last episode, nothing from this game outside of Daisy herself came from left this game to go into the Mario franchise. And my research after we recorded the Mega Man 2 episode sort of indicates that Daisy only came back because Peach needed a doubles partner in Mario Tennis 64. Camelot is 100% responsible for Daisy being a mainstream Mario character now.
Yep. So it's interesting to see how this is an important game in a lot of ways, and it's honestly a pretty good game. And it reviewed well, it sold well, and it's just gone.
Yeah. Not even Tatanga, the final boss of this game, shows up in Mario anymore. I think maybe he has a trophy in some Smash game, but outside of that, he's forgotten. He's gone.
He's made some cameo somewhere, I think, but that's it.
But that being said, if you're wondering why are they going into the history of this game, there's two reasons for that. And the first one, obviously, this game is important. Historically, like Duck Hunt, this game is very, very important to Nintendo. It's very important to gaming history. It's an important game. But two, like Duck Hunt, there ain't much to talk about. This is a short game.
There's a little bit to talk about, but for the most part, this is a Mario game.
Sure is.
And that's all it is, really. It is so significant and impressive and important in how it transfers Mario to the weakest system that it's ever been on and makes it all work in a cohesive manner. But that's really all that's different. If you've played any Mario game, you kind of know what to expect from the gameplay in this one.
Yeah, and it's pretty much just Super Mario Brothers with a different skin on it and a little less power behind it.
Yeah, and differences in level design. The level design philosophy doesn't feel terribly Mario, even if all the mechanics are.
Well, speaking of level design, there are 4 worlds in this game, all of them with their own aesthetics, which actually surprised me how unique each level is for the Game Boy. That's weird.
Yeah, they each, like, there's a little bit of reused, like, songs and all that, but for the most part, each level has a defined identity that is, like, totally unique to it.
And it's actually kind of insane. Like, the first world is based around, like, Egyptian stuff. And then you got the second world, which is based around, like, the sea. And you even, like, get in a submarine in World 2-3, which was weird. And then, like, you've got the third world, which... what was the third world?
The third world is Eastern Kingdom, based off of Easter Island.
Oh, yeah. So, how did I forget that? Because one of my favorite things in this entire game are the doofy-ass looking... Moais with arms that just, like, dash straight at... They're so fast, and they look so stupid, and I love them dearly.
They're also themes that, you know, like we said, the aesthetics are totally different from the rest of the Mario series. They're the kinds of themes that you don't see in Mario. They're all based off of real-world locations.
Yeah, and... they also all have music that really fits their aesthetics, which is another thing that surprised me, is that every level, there's very little song reuse that goes on in this game for levels. That's partially because there are so few levels, but, like, there's only, like, 1 or 2 songs that show up multiple times outside of their world.
Well, it's really only the Birabato Kingdom theme, and, well, for some reason, the underground theme is called the Eastern Kingdom theme, even though it's not even the main theme in Eastern Kingdom. But those 2 songs are the only ones that are reused whatsoever.
Yeah, and I don't know, just aesthetically, this game is surprisingly strong, way stronger than I expected a Game Boy launch game to be.
Yeah, and it ends up, like, it's some of the best aesthetics on the whole Game Boy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say it's some of the best aesthetics of, like, early era Mario in general.
Yeah. Like, there are some games that look slightly better, like, you know, Link's Awakening comes to mind, but Link's Awakening also has a fixed top-down camera that heavily restricts what you can see. There's only so many layers you can put on a Game Boy screen, and this game uses, like, that one layer they get to great effect.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly... I mean, I'm not going to say it's a good-looking game, because it's
a Game Boy game.
It's a Game Boy game. They don't look great. But for the limitations of the Game Boy, damn, they stretched this as far as they could possibly stretch it. Like, I'm pleasantly surprised, like, how well this game works from an asset standpoint.
Like, they got right out of the gate with the Game Boy.
Meanwhile, the gameplay at some points leaves something to be desired. I'm not gonna pretend that it's a bad game. It's not, actually. I enjoyed this game quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly good for the first game they made on the Game Boy. Well, one of the first games they made. I mean, it plays like a Mario game. It's kind of hard to screw that up. But, like, it plays relatively well. It's just Mario's movement is a little weird sometimes. You learned very quickly that the run button is the die button.
Yeah, well, I didn't learn that quickly. I was pretty stubborn about it.
And that was the only piece of advice you gave me when I asked, was don't press the run unless you absolutely are sure that you're on flat ground. And I'm pretty sure I ran maybe like 10 times throughout the entire game. I would press that button.
I was running constantly, and I'm sure you can imagine how that didn't go well.
Yeah, I could sort of imagine that. But, like, there's also some weird stuff with when you jump. If you weren't sort of moving before you jumped, then you're not going to have a lot of momentum to your jump sometimes, which is something that I noticed.
I mean, that's fair. That's how physics work, after all.
Yeah, but that's not usually how Mario physics work, is the thing.
I guess.
But, I mean, it wasn't like... We're not talking Ice Climber level jumping mechanics here, where it's just a little bit weird and jarring at first, but you get used to it pretty quickly.
I mean, you can speak for yourself with regards to Ice Climber.
Fuck you. And outside of that, you've also got the plane and submarine levels. And those are weird.
Yeah. I don't know what those were about, besides being another thing that we could be like, hey, look what we can do.
I don't really know how to feel about them, because, so, my wrist hurt at the end of that airplane level, because I was jamming the shoot button so much.
I didn't have that happen, but it's... I don't know, that is weird all around, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if I liked them or not. That's the thing. I don't have a huge problem with them, but I also don't think I enjoyed them. They were just sort of around, and it's especially weird that the final boss is one.
Yeah, but that's also like just the mechanics of how Mario works. Like, if you want a real boss fight, change the gameplay a bit.
Yeah, I suppose. Because otherwise it's just going to be like Bowser on the bridge. Because that's what most of the bosses in this game, except for the last one, sort of, the last two, I guess, that's what they sort of emulate, which is the original Super Mario Brothers, jump over Bowser, run under Bowser, get the axe, lower the bridge, you win.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the last one, which is the last regular boss, which is my least favorite boss in the game. That cloud can eat my ass. I hate it. I hate that cloud. Shooting parrots at me, I'll fucking kill it. I did kill it.
There were some sound effects going on in this game.
Yeah, the sound effect for hitting that cloud is not good. Kind of hurts to listen to.
It's unpleasant.
But, like, that's the only boss I really didn't like there. They got a little bit unique with some of the bosses, honestly. Because the first one is just the Sphinx, and it's literally just Bowser. It's jump over it, hit the button, bridge falls, you win. But then you've got whatever, I don't remember what the second one was, but I know it was something technically underwater, and it's in the submarine. I don't know why I said technically underwater. It is underwater. You're in a fucking submarine. You're in a submarine, and you can either shoot it to death, or I believe, and I didn't do this, so I don't have 100% confirmation on this, you can just, like, go around it and hit the button, and then it's dead.
I'm going to level with you. Don't remember the bosses that well.
I think it was a seahorse. I don't remember either. And then there's the Moai head with a beard that is throwing boulders at you. And you're supposed to jump on the boulders and jump over it and hit the button. But certain members of this podcast damage boosted accidentally to the button, which, hey, whatever works, works.
It all turned out fine for me.
Whatever works, works, man. And then you've got the cloud, which you don't have a button that you can hit to instantly win. You have to actually, it's just straight up a shooter boss, and it shoots fucking parrots at you, and it sucks, and it makes an awful sound when you hit it. And you fight Tatanga, who's another shooter boss. But Tatanga's not all that bad. It's actually surprisingly easy.
Yeah, it's like if Medusa wasn't terrible.
Yeah, a little bit. He does, a lot of those shooter levels reminded me of the shooter level ending of Kid Icarus. Like, and then going back and saying, like, these are the same people that made that game, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because, like, you can see the DNA there. And they must really like shooter gameplay.
Yeah. Which, I don't know if they ever, like, made a flying shooter game. I mean, obviously they made Metroid, but I don't know if the concept of a game where you're in a ship that's flying around and shooting and stuff, I don't know if they ever made one of those.
I mean, that was a big genre on the SNES, so they possibly could have, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that Nintendo would have been known for.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's pretty much all I've got on the game itself. Like I said, there's not a lot to this game outside of its historical significance and a couple of things about, like, praising its aesthetics and all that.
Yeah, it was cool that you can ride on boulders.
Yeah, that was actually a little bit cool. It was a little bit weird at first. It took a little bit getting used to. But, yeah, it's a fun mechanic.
Mm-hmm. And that's more or less it.
I just want my buff Moai boys to come back to the series. if nothing else ever returned from Super Mario Land, and it was just the buff Moai boys. I said Moai, but like bring buff Moai boys as well. But for the most part, I want my buff Moai boys. They're so good. They're my sons.
Sure, whatever you say.
Let's get into arguably the best part of the entire game, and that is the soundtrack.
Yes. Oh man, this game's got some jamming music.
Well, first off, let's get it out of the way. You've got the overworld theme, which is the iconic theme from the game.
It's so good. Why isn't it in Smash?
It's a really catchy song. Why isn't there at the very least, a Super Mario Land, like, medley?
Though, I mean, all we got was Eastern Kingdom.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Eastern Kingdom's like the least poppin' song in the game.
Yeah, I'd say it's still a very good song, but like it's the least. You described it as the least deserving of the stage music to be in Smash, and I think I'd agree with that. Mainly because the rest of the songs just blow it out of the damn water. Most notably, Chai Kingdom.
I like Eastern Kingdom better, but yeah, Chai Kingdom is a pretty good song.
Oh, I love Chai Kingdom. It's so good, and it's really impressive how they actually they found a way to sort of emulate the Chinese instrumentation on a Game Boy sound chip.
Uh-huh.
That's impressive as hell! And that's my favorite song in the entire game. Like, by far. I love it. What about you? What song do you want to give shout-outs to? Or songs?
Muda Kingdom.
Yeah, Muda Kingdom is up there as my second. Because it's extremely good. It's just really bouncy and happy and fun.
Muda Kingdom reminds me a lot of like Mario Tennis on the Game Boy.
I could hear that. But nah, Muda Kingdom is a fun song. I agree with that. It's actually number 2 on my list when I was making my top 3. With my number 3 actually being Marine Pop, Sky Pop.
don't even remember how Marine Pop Sky Pop goes, to be honest.
So I have one problem with Marine Pop Sky Pop. I enjoy it. It's very much like an enhanced original Super Mario Brothers theme.
Okay, I'm listening to it now, and it's... okay.
It's very good. The problem with it is that it's a little too short for the levels that it's in. Because it plays during the airplane and submarine levels, and those two levels are probably the longest levels in the game.
I kind of feel like that song is a lot. Like, it's not long a lot, but it's like there's a lot going on there.
There is. And like I said, it feels like a sort of enhanced original Super Mario Brothers theme. Because you can hear the elements from that song in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think it's catchy. I think it's bouncy. But I do believe that there is a flaw in it and that its length does not quite match up to the levels that it was inserted into.
Uh-huh.
But that's pretty much all I got on the soundtrack. Do you got anything else you wanted to go shout out to?
Not really. That's kind of just it. That's really the most of the game. So,
yeah, there's really nothing else to talk about when it comes to Super Mario Land. So we should move on. But before we move on to our next game, we should hammer this out right now, because I think there's a pretty clear decision that we can make now, in my opinion at least. So last episode we asked, which game are we playing for Isabelle? And we asked you guys to let us know which game we should play for Isabelle. And it's sounding like the better option at this point is going to be Happy Home Designer.
Yes.
So do we want to just go ahead and call that now and say for sure that Isabelle's game is Happy Home Designer?
I don't think we have to say anything for sure right now, but...
No, it needs to be for sure forever. For now, I think we should say it's Happy Home Designer. This could be subject to change. I am personally going to start campaigning to change one game that might be coming up soon. Not soon, but like within the next batch of like 10 games. Being, I might start campaigning hard to change from Rondo of Blood to Symphony of the Night. For multiple reasons.
You just don't want to play a hard game.
Well, I also just feel like Symphony of the Night might have more interesting stuff to it. But we'll see. That's going to be something we're going to have to talk about. There's pros and cons to both. But I think for now, just playing on Isabelle's game is going to be Happy Home Designer.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about our next game. And that game is the game selected to represent fighter number 14, Bowser. It is the 1990 Super Nintendo game, Super Mario World.
I've heard some people like it.
A few people like it, including Ben.
I hate this game.
So this is going to be our first foray into doing an episode with a guest. Welcome, Ben. How you doing?
I'm good.
How about we take a moment to explain for those who don't know who Ben is?
Ben used to be a co-host of mine on the last podcast I used to do called Read the Manual, and he was also a co-host on Moon Prism Power Hour, which was a show we both worked on.
Still alive, still going.
Yeah, you got to send me the stuff for the next episode.
You sure do. We're pretty late on that.
You never sent me those files.
So if you recognize him, that's where you recognize him from. So there you go. All three of you, that 3 is a generous number. All one of you that recognize both of our names.
Yep.
But
I'd say that would be me. Yeah.
When
all 3 of them are in this podcast.
When I asked what game you wanted to do, you couldn't choose between Mario Land or Mario World for a while. And then
So you're on both.
Well,
yeah, technically.
Joe picked because he was like, we gotta, like, don't play the game yet. And I was like, I'm like 3/4 the way through Mario Land as we're talking.
Okay, well, we just went on for a half hour about Mario Land. And what's your take on Mario Land?
I really like it. It got me through a lot of car trips when I was a kid. I never beat it until years later. It's got some of the best music in the Mario series. It's got a lot of cool enemy designs. Not so much by the pixel art, but if you look in like the art books and stuff, it's got a lot of cool designs that I wish would come back.
Buff Moai children.
Well, I love King Totemester. He's really cool. and they can't really do Piompies anymore. But we found that the Super Ball flower is apparently in the latest WarioWare game from, like, this year.
What?
I don't know how.
Oh my god!
But it lists it. I think it did. Or maybe Super Ball Mario shows up or something.
Maybe, like, something in... Maybe 9 Volts Games just has something from Mario Land in it?
I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, it says Super Ball Mario latest appearance WarioWare Gold.
I'm actually really happy that you brought up the whole car ride thing, though, because something I totally forgot to bring up is how this game is kind of designed around the fact that it is, like, it's a game that has a battery as its, like, hard time limit. They had to build the size and scale of the game around the fact that you could play it for, at most, I don't know what the original Game Boy's battery life was, like 3-4 hours?
Something like that.
Probably. That sounds about right.
It lasted pretty well.
But luckily, that's not an issue with Super Mario World.
Yep.
Which, okay, so I think this is the best 2D Mario game, bar none. Still.
It's better than 3.
It would not be a controversial opinion to say that it is the best 2D Mario. It's still, in a way, a lot of what we like most identify with 2D Mario is this game. It's got multiple exits in different levels that you could go out into different paths for branching pathways for different levels, and it's also got, like, it's the first time that the power-ups started to really come front and center. We had power-ups in the last couple games, but you can store one and switch between them in Mario World, and Yoshi first makes its appearance in this game. There's just so much about 2D Marios that was codified in Mario World.
Yeah, just a bunch of features that we're just used to now. That's just how Mario is. Even more so than the original Mario Brothers. Original Super Mario Brothers, sorry. Sometimes I forget there's a game called Mario Brothers. That is not very good.
It's really good.
Of course you'd say that.
No, I don't care for it. I really don't.
Ben, you've got a lot of experience playing Mario World and ROM hacks of it, right?
Yeah, I got a little experience. I spend most of every summer doing all 96 exits, which I didn't do this year.
Well, you'll do it now.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Well, I don't know about all 96. Some of those get kind of hard. There's some that involve, like, backtracking to get, like, Yoshi and also a cape to do some of them, and that's what always threw me off when I was a kid, because when you finish it, like, it just says 96 next to your save file, which makes everyone think, oh, I'm almost done with the game. I got 4% left.
Oh, that's cruel.
Yeah, it really sucks. That's the one bad thing about this whole game.
Well, our win conditions are only to defeat all 8 Koopalings and Bowser, so you don't gotta worry about getting all of the exits.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. It's like 70, I think.
It's pretty straightforward. And
yeah.
We have that specifically as our win condition, because you could actually beat the game a lot quicker than that if you know the right exits.
Yeah, I think the no glitch route is like 11 exits. Something like that.
So, yeah, you could...
You can get to Star Road really fast.
Yeah, and then from there you can get straight to Bowser's Castle, after not very much.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this. I've played plenty of Mario World in the past. I played it specifically on the Game Boy Advance version, which I am most used to the controls specifically on that one. So I'm probably going to have to end up remapping controls to play this, because if the spin jump isn't on R, I don't even know what I'm doing.
That's a weird place for it. I guess because there's no 4-face button, so you gotta have somewhere.
Yeah, and it's more intuitive there for me.
That's gonna be weird. Speaking of spin jump, that's my advice to you, Joe. Use the spin jump often.
Okay.
It breaks that game.
Have you not played it?
I have played it before. I've never beaten Super Mario World, but I have played it.
Oh, wow.
But, like, no one uses the spin jump. It's weird and awkward to use, and so a lot of people don't realize that it's the perfect thing to use on so many enemies.
Well, I too owned Super Mario Advance, the Super Mario Advance that was Super Mario World for a long time, but I never beat it as a kid, and it's long gone, obviously. And I've played the Super Nintendo version a couple of times in my life, but again, never beaten it. Speaking of the Super Nintendo version, you can go buy it on the eShop for Wii U for $7.99. So you should obviously.
I think it's also on 3DS, isn't it?
I believe Super Mario Advance is on 3DS, and I'm going to go look up.
Super Mario Advance is Mario.
If I can find... Well, one of the... Super Mario Advance, one of them is Mario World, but...
Yeah, Super Mario Advance 2 is Mario World.
Yeah.
And Super Mario Advance 3 is Mario 3. Super Mario Advance 4, now that's Yoshi's Island. That's where you get into the real shit.
Alright, you can buy it... Oh, you can also buy Super Mario Advance 2 on Wii U for $7.99.
There you go.
So you can get both versions of the game for $8 on Wii U. You should absolutely go ahead and go do that.
It's a bargain.
Buy one or the other, or both, if that suits your fancy. I will be playing the SNES version on Wii U, because I already own it. And that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. Ben, I assume you will be playing the SNES version?
Yep. Not on my actual SNES, because it's not here.
But you'll be playing the SNES version.
Oh, yeah. I've never played the advanced version.
And will you be playing the Advance or the SNES version?
I haven't decided yet.
You better be playing the SNES version.
I haven't decided yet.
I mean, I don't think there's any significant difference between the two outside of controls.
We thought that about Mario 2 USA.
That is perfect. You're completely right on that. And that's like a different fucking game.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna check. Changes from the original game. Oh, Luigi actually jumps higher in Mario Advance 2.
Oh, alrighty.
The art is largely redone. There are new cutscenes. Quality of the entire soundtrack is downgraded for the Game Boy Advance's inferior sound chips.
That's a shame. That's a good soundtrack.
Yep. The ending is significantly altered. The color of the Yoshi that hatches may depend on the power-up that the player has. And there are some minor changes to level design in some places.
Weird.
It's not as drastic a change as Mario 2 USA was.
Yeah, they didn't add fucking voice acting.
No, they did.
Oh my god, what?
Yeah, they added voice acting.
What the hell?
But only for Mario and Luigi.
Huh. Alrighty.
I'm gonna have to look up what's different about the ending, because I'm very interested in knowing.
But that should be Super Mario World. I'm looking forward to it as well. With that, we should go ahead and wrap it up. So remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Smashterpieces. You can follow us on Facebook at Smashterpieces. And you can even go to our website. That's anondino.squarespace.com. That's anondino.squarespace.com.
And anon as in anonymous.
Yeah. You'll find not only places where you can just directly download the episode, but you can also find links to both mine and Matt's Twitch channels. Ben, will you be streaming Mario World at all?
I don't know. Undetermined.
If you do, where can people find that?
They can't.
All right.
Don't worry, we'll tweet it.
You can also find a link to the entire list of games.
All of them.
Yeah, all the games that have ever been made, and also
all
the games that we're playing.
74 of them.
Every game. Highlight. Lemmings.
We had a fan of the show actually tweet at us trying to increase the length of this. I said on Twitter that I'm willing to bet money on Box Theory, and they were like, "I'll bet you games played." And they were like, "If Box Theory is right, I'll play every Kingdom Hearts, and if it's wrong, you guys will do separate games for all of the Pokemon trainer characters." And I was like, this is really more Joe's show than mine. I don't know if I can make that call.
Yeah, you threw me under the goddamn bus, you asshole.
But also, no one should have to play every Kingdom Hearts game.
I mean, I love Kingdom Hearts, and I agree with you. I'm gonna go play a Kingdom Hearts game right after this. It's gonna suck. So,
I think Joe and Ben, you would both agree that there are Kingdom Hearts games not worth playing. That sentence you both agree on, right?
Yes. Anyways, this is not a Kingdom Hearts podcast. Sora is not and will not be in Smash. You can find the list of all of our games see what's coming up next. We've got another Game Boy game coming up after Super Mario World, and it's gonna be a weird one. So, get ready for that.
There's no way to get ready for that game.
With that being said, please remember to rate the podcast and give it a review if you haven't already on wherever you listen to your podcasts. It would really help us out. We'd really appreciate it.
Studies have shown that search engine optimization and playing the algorithm tends to improve your views.
Yeah. Funny thing, that. And with that, my name is Joe.
I'm Matt.
I'm Ben.
And we are out. See you next time when we talk about Super Mario World.
I told Joe I'm working on a new new catchphrase.
For you or for...
So, what if for my introduction, what sounds better? If it's like, oh, here's Ben, I'm like, yowza, or it's like, he says, here's Ben. Shut up! Don't make me laugh. He says, here's Ben, and I'm like, and the catchphrase is instead, good gamer, everyone. What do you like? What do you like better?
I'm blocking you.
I'm not going to do either, because I'm already, my face is beet red right now. So I won't do either. Ooh, I don't have that podcast confidence anymore.